Hey friends, welcome back. Today we are on episode 3 of Transform, and I am taking you through a full week of meal prep. We're doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I like to keep things simple, so we are gonna get this done in less than an hour. I did want to do this video last week. If you were wondering where this video was, we are in midst of the Buff Bunny collection launch, which for me just ends up being a very busy week. I ended up utilizing Hungry Root last week. If you're not familiar with Hungry Root, I love them. I've been using them since the summer, and I tend to utilize them during busy weeks and just pause on other days, but it's essentially a healthy meal delivery service. They deliver to you a full box of groceries, kind of like you see here, with a recipe list that you can make all your recipes less than 30 minutes. I absolutely love that service. This video is not sponsored. I just wanted to mention that it's a great service to utilize because we cannot escape meal prepping if we are trying to reach our goals. There's just no way around it, friends. So sometimes you do have to do those types of things. I do have a discount code turned on with them, so I'll leave that in the description box if you want to check it out. Absolutely no pressure. I'm going to take you through this week's meal prep though, and I'm going to keep this fairly simple-ish, but also quite enjoyable. If you're interested in this week's meal prep, I'm going to leave information in the description box for you to go ahead and get the full grocery list with all recipes, so you don't need to panic and write stuff down. On this week's meal prep list, for breakfast, I'm going to be prepping up my Weetabix bowls. If you've never seen me make these before, there's a ton of different variations of how you can do them. So I'm going to do basically like a berry cheesecake breakfast bowl. This one's egg-free, and it's such a nice change if you're someone who's just sick of the standard eggs, whatever you normally eat for breakfast. It's a nice change, and it's very satisfying. For lunches, we are going to prep up chicken power bowls. This is just such a great recipe. Again, very versatile that you can alter how you like it, what veggies you want in there. We're gonna have some chicken, some greens, all the veggies, a little pasta, just all the things to have a super balanced meal. And lastly, for dinners, I am gonna make my hamburger soup. This was a specialty of my father's growing up that always hits the spot. All of these are very quick to prep and very satisfying. These are meals that I am going to consume not only to help me stay lean and fit, but in addition, fuel my performance as I am training for a full marathon and I am still strength training. And I often get asked, how do you not gain weight or lose your muscle during these types of training blocks? And this is exactly how. I'm very purposeful in my nutrition. So the first thing you need to start with before we get into this is just thinking about how you like to prep your meals. If you don't want to eat this, that's cool. Here is my simple method for you, the plate method. Think about for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, your ability to fill half your plate with either fruits and veggies, the other quarter with some protein, and maybe the other quarter with some healthy fat and carbohydrates. So a balanced meal each and every time you eat is going to go a lot further than if you don't balance it out in terms of the macronutrients that you consume. So I like to try to be very purposeful with my meals in effort to produce the most satisfaction possible. So if you're joining me on this Transform journey, and you're trying to lose weight or change your body comp, I suggest you do the same with just really thinking about those basics that you enjoy. Protein, carbs, healthy fats, fruits, veggies, list it all out and start creating some simple meals in that way. That's kind of how I always do my recipes in prep, or I look to Pinterest for some inspo, but really it's kind of a rotation of a lot of the same stuff that I enjoy. So once you figure that part out, it makes the meal prep that much easier. Moving into the actual meal prep, the way that I like to expedite this is I like to lay everything out and take a look at the meals I'm making. What is going to take the longest time to cook and prep, and start there, and then reverse engineer so that you can really make the most of your time and make it as efficient as possible. So usually the meat for me is the longest thing. Breakfast is going to be pretty easy to prep, so I want to get going on cooking the meat. So the first thing I'm going to do for the hamburger soup recipe is we're going to brown up some ground beef. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that process started and throw 1.5 pounds of ground beef on the stovetop to start cooking. Beef is browning. I'm going to go to my next meat, which is going to be for our chicken power bowls, and we're going to get prepped the chicken for these power bowls. I can get the chicken ick real easily, but this is my favorite way to make chicken. I highly recommend you just switch up your cooking techniques a bit. So, little tip for you too when you meal prep, create recipes that are gonna cook in different things. So if you're cooking on the stovetop, have something you're cooking in the air fryer, maybe cook something in the slow cooker. It just makes it easier so you're not waiting for one thing to finish. You can cook it all at once. So we're doing the chicken in the air fryer. I've already got organic chicken breasts. They are my favorite. I've gotten all the icky fat and veins ripped off of here. And what we're gonna do to just kind of flavor this up a little bit is I do like to use a little bit of extra virgin olive oil on it, just kind of drizzle it on. I used to be someone that would not use fat with my cooking for the longest time, and instead would just eat all my fat from peanut butter. And honestly, that's so wrong on so many levels. Number one, I just think digestively, peanut butter doesn't go over as well with me as I would like to believe. Number two, there is just such a benefit with cooking from fat in terms of how it flavors your food. And in my mind before, I'd be like, well, that's a waste of olive oil. I'm not sitting there eating my olive oil. But honestly, I just feel so much better now that I incorporate more olive oil into my diet, avocado, nuts. I just have a better variety overall with my healthy fats. And I notice a huge difference in my energy as well as satisfaction of eating these things. So instead of eating a dry ass piece of chicken, put a little olive oil on it. You don't need a lot. I did just use a full tablespoon. Honestly, clearly I didn't need that much, but just to give you an idea, it definitely makes a huge difference with how delicious this chicken will taste. Play around with how you like to season things. My favorite way to season it is if you can find this Kinder seasoning, the caramelized onion butter, scarf it up. It is so delicious. You don't need a lot of it. Obviously, there's already sodium in it, but I am gonna use a little bit of this and garlic sea salt, and that's all I'm gonna use to season it. So we're just gonna sprinkle that on. I usually just do it on one side, to be honest with you. So yeah, a nice generous amount, but use whatever you like. One crank of that on each piece of my chicken boobs. Okay, these are going into my Ninja air fryer. Not sure if you have this option, take a look. But my Ninja air fryer has an option for air roast. The air roast option has been a game changer for chicken. Just kind of stumbled upon it one day and said, let me try air roasting this chicken. And it came out so delicious. Air fry kind of dries it out a little bit in my opinion, where air roast gives it that like nice cooked, texture you need, but it keeps it really moist on the inside. So all of these chickens are going in the air fryer. We are gonna turn it on. We're gonna do air roast. And I'm gonna do 15 minutes to start it out. I do have 3 boobs in there, so I might need it to go a little longer, but we're gonna start there because we want to keep it juicy. We don't want it all dried out. Next, with our chicken meal, I do wanna add in a little bit of pasta to our chicken power bowl. It's gonna be mostly veggies, but I need carbohydrates right now to fuel my body, as most people do. This pasta, seriously love it. New favorite, found it at Walmart. Brahmi protein pasta, so it's made with Italian wheat, which for a lot of people goes over much better than US produced wheat. It's interesting, right? How Europe just does it better, but it also has beans in it. So fiber wise, 5 grams, protein wise, 12 grams of protein in a serving. But I'm gonna cook this up because I'm gonna put like a nice little portion of pasta in each of our chicken bowls. This takes like 10 minutes. So we gotta get the water boiling. Let's do that right now to keep it moving. Everybody's cold this time of year, apparently. Everyone's having a cold front, so this is such an easy, delicious soup recipe you can make. I love soup, and it's so easy to just grab a can of soup, but honestly, the time it takes to make your own homemade soup, there is something to be said about making your own meals. I mentioned using Hungry Root last week, and many of you who follow me here know Jason does a lot of the cooking in the household, but there is just something different about meal satisfaction for me personally when I do take the time to put in the effort to curate my own meals, put a little love and care into it. There's something about it that gets me excited to eat my meals. It also removes that decision fatigue, which is huge for many of us. We get so consumed with the amount of decisions we have to make every day. And food, honestly, it gets really tiring, especially if you're someone who's conflicted about how you should eat. I highly, highly recommend creating a meal plan for yourself. It can vary week to week, or if you lock it down and you love it, put that shit on rotation. Consistency is key in everything we do. So finding the things that you love and making it more enjoyable, removing the decision fatigue, it really does make it all easier in the long run. So instead of dreading meal prep, just find a way to make it fun. And if you want some help with meal prep, I'm toying with doing a live meal prep video with me so that we can meal prep together. Let me know in the comments if that would be something you'd be interested in attending. I'm thinking like a Sunday meal prep together. Let me know down in the comments. Because we're gonna keep this moving, baby. This is quick meal prep. While things are cooking, things are boiling, we're gonna start chopping anything that needs to be chopped. Let's get it all done, one and done. First thing I'm gonna chop up is an onion that's gonna go in our hamburger soup. And I'm also gonna put a little potato in there too. It's totally optional based on you, but I'm gonna do some potato too. So we're gonna chop both of those up. And then otherwise, we're just adding in frozen veggies and a can to open. So real easy. What I'm gonna do too is actually go ahead and I'm gonna add this onion in with the beef so that the onion can kind of get caramelized in with the beef. Gosh, there's nothing better smelling than beef and onion, in my opinion. 151. Pasta's going in. So I'm gonna add in some garlic. Now that the beef's browned, we're gonna transfer this to a bigger bowl. I'm gonna add all that in here. And then essentially add everything else to it and let it simmer for like 15 minutes or until our potatoes are tender. You can do diced tomatoes. I'm doing the crushed roasted garlic and herb. This is 28 ounces. That's gonna go right into our pot. And also a little bit all over me. I'm adding in 350 grams of butter potato diced up. Worcestershire sauce. I cannot say this. And I never know that I need this or not, but recipes always tell me so. I'm just eyeballing this, so that's like a tablespoon eyeballed. You could certainly do more tomato sauce, like crushed tomato if you want. This is from my dad's recipe. I like to do V8 juice, so I'm doing it with the low sodium. Now you can add in any frozen vegetables you like. I'm a picky bee. I forgot to mention, I had to go to 3 grocery stores to get all the things that I wanted. I specifically wanted the mixed vegetables with the lima beans in there because I like the lima beans, but I also prefer the crinkle carrots and I couldn't find it all. So I had to go to different stores, but we're gonna add in 1 full bag of these mixed vegetables. You can use whatever you like, whatever your little heart desires for veg. I'm gonna throw in some of these crinkle carrots too. It's gonna be a big batch of soup. Okay, I'm gonna give that a little mix and see what we're working with here. Looks like a good ratio for me personally of potato, meat, and vegetables. So I'm gonna keep that there on a lower heat. I'm gonna cover it and just let it simmer while we finish up everything else. I ended up cooking the chicken for 20 minutes. That looks to be a good texture that I like. So I'm gonna chop it up into chunks. And then you could just weigh this out and add into each of your bowls how much ever chicken you want. I usually do weigh my meat raw, but this time I'm just gonna do it cooked after the fact and make sure that I enter it into my tracker as such. The air roasting function just gets, you see how like crispy that is on the outside and then it stays nice and juicy on the inside. So if you like your chicken like that and you're able to with your air fryer, I highly suggest doing it that way. And just making it in bulk like this makes it so much easier. You going in for one, Jay?
Yep,
it's hot. It's hot. I told you it's hot, hot, hot.
Delicious.
Right? Just every time I'm always like, why don't I cook this more? It's so good. It's just so good this way. The kitchen's gonna look messy. It's part of it. We're trying to do the meal prep quick, so we just clean up at the end. Chicken bowls are ready to assemble. Things are a little hot still, but that's okay. We're gonna go ahead. I am gonna measure some of what I'm putting in here, not so much the veg. Ain't so worried about that, but I'm gonna do just like a nice little amount of pasta. I experience about 3 ounces of cooked chicken ends up being about 25 grams of protein, which is usually what I like to go for. Then we're gonna add in some greens, some shredded carrots, some bell pepper, and some tomato. I'm also gonna be adding avocado to these bowls, but since I'm prepping it ahead of time, I don't wanna do it ahead because I feel like avocado browns up, but just wanted to mention that suggestion. I'm also going to probably just mix this up and eat this with a little bit of dressing. You could use anything you want. One thing I like to do is take Greek non-fat plain yogurt, mix it with a little ranch dip. This will make it even more high in protein, keeps it fat-free, so this ends up being a very low-fat meal for you, very high in protein. So I'm gonna mix up some of this to stir in there. I'm gonna add some Italian seasoning in here. Mrs. Dash, close enough, tomato, basil, garlic. Just to add like a little Italian flavor to it. Although we added tomato sauce and V8 juice, low sodium, I'm gonna add in a little more salt to cook into it, garlic sea salt. It's coming along, it's tasty. I'm gonna give it a stir and let it keep simmering. And let's get breakfast together. For our cheesecake breakfast bowls, I am using Weetabix. This is more of a UK thing, but I can find it in the US in all of my grocery stores. If for some reason you cannot, you could do a plain shredded wheat. That'll work basically the same. Essentially, we're gonna use these. They come as like little biscuits. Good source of whole grains. They're thick, flaky. They don't have a lot of flavor, all right? There's not like a sweetness to them, not a lot of flavor. We're gonna do 2 biscuits in each of these to create somewhat of a graham cracker crust, if you will. I find it easiest to just break them up with your hands. Just crunch it up, and it's actually kind of satisfying too. For our crust, you could add a little protein powder to it if you want. You could add a little cinnamon. You could add none of the above. We at least need to add a little milk. But I am gonna add a little cinnamon. I'm not gonna add protein powder to this because I normally have my Ghost Lifestyle Oreo protein cold brew with my breakfast. So I'm trying to not overdo the whey protein. What we're gonna do is just add a little bit of milk, add the desired amount to be able to, I'm just gonna eyeball that and start smushing it down with a spoon to kind of create our crust. Now make sure there's enough milk so it's all saturated, but you don't want it to be too wet. I don't know how to say that in a non-pervy way. So this is what your crust is gonna look like. Just lay it, kind of push it down so it's nice and flat. That's ready to go. These are a recipe that does need to be chilled. I prefer it chilled overnight. Honestly, the longer it's in there, the better it tastes. Just my personal opinion. Next, we're gonna move into the filling. This you can adapt however you like. I'm a little bit odd. I don't need sweet yogurt. I kind of like plain yogurt, so I've got 0% Fage here. We're gonna add some stuff to it, but I just throw that out there. If you're like, girl, no, I can't, it tastes like sour cream, then you could always do like a vanilla yogurt or spruce it up with a little sweetener, a little honey, whatever you like. I'm gonna go ahead and first put my plain yogurt into our bowl here to not only measure it, but I'm gonna do like raspberries mixed into the middle of it and a little bit of vanilla. So I'm just gonna measure this all out first and kind of mix it up in the bowl before we throw it into our containers. Our containers, what are words? I don't know. Just a little bit of pure Madagascar vanilla for me personally. Just a little zhuzh just to give it a little something for flav. And then I'm gonna do raspberries in here. So I think I'm gonna use up the rest of these raspberries. They're so good, I wish I bought another one. Love using raspberries because they're just so high in fiber, high volume, lower in calories, and delicious if you get them at the right time, you know? So now that that's in there, I'm just gonna kind of mix it up. If I smush the berries, that's fine. I'm gonna top it with some strawberries too. So it's gonna make a really nice, tasty, fruity, cheesecakey breakfast and get in some fruit servings too. Definitely wouldn't be sweet enough for the average person. Just beware, add in some sweetener if you want. I'm not going to though. So we're just gonna go ahead, plop these in. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, but also gonna try to make sure it's fairly even for what's going into each bowl. And yes, you definitely could make this and eat it first thing in the morning. I've done that before where I've made it and just ate it right away, but let me tell you, it definitely tastes a lot better if you can let it really sit overnight. To finish her off, I want to add a little more fruit to the top, so I'm going to cut up some strawberries to add on top. And then optional, I'm gonna do a little sprinkle of granola. You could do granola, graham cracker, you could do some almonds, whatever your heart desires here for a topping. I like switching it up, so I might do a little something different for each of these so I have variety every day. So I like to cut my strawberries thin so I can kind of like spread it out so that every bite gets a berry. We've decided we're calling this the Berry Bliss Bowl. All right, I'm gonna do different toppings on each of them. I've got some coconut flakes here. I'm gonna do a tablespoon of coconut flakes on one. I think that'll be a nice little touch. Okay, coconut flakes on one. I'm gonna do these sliced almonds on the second one. I'm a texture girl, so I like to add different textures in here, but if there's one thing you like, just go with it. Then I just happen to have these graham cracker crumbs from a previous recipe. Do a tablespoon of graham cracker crumbs on this one. This is the final product. The soup, by the way, you know it's done when those potatoes are nice and tender, which came out perfect after a low simmer for about 15 minutes. I've got the soup somewhat portioned out. That's gonna make a good 8 servings. You're definitely gonna wanna make sure that cools down before you add it to the fridge. So I'm gonna let that sit out. For my chicken power bowls, I'm gonna add in some avocado during the week as well as some Greek yogurt ranch dip, but I'm gonna wait on that because I think it could get a little soggy. So I'm gonna keep that on the side. Those are ready to go to the fridge. My Berry Bliss breakfast, those are ready to go in the fridge to chill as well. I'm very excited. The meal prep is done less than an hour, and now I've got some good staple eats for the next few days. I'm not a huge snacker, but I will add in some other stuff. This isn't the entirety of what I will eat over the next few days, but I hope this gives you a good idea of how to do some quick, easy meal prep. This still tastes good and helps you with your goals.